male scholars get in touch with the people, people of wisdom, because I know in my community, for example, there's no imam, and in a variety of communities around me, there's no imam currently. So I don't know how I can ask my I can ask my daily questions to who will give me trusted feedback.
It's valid. It's a valid question. I mean, I have that problem as a male, so I can only imagine the female. No, seriously. It's not just imams that are locally accessible. A lot of times, the imams we have access to, with all due respect to our imams, a good number of them really shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and end up creating a lot of problems in communities, unfortunately. It's a controversial subject, so I'll steer clear of that for now. But there needs to be really a paradigm shift. And what I mean by that is you guys are the generation under me, under my generation. Our generation's job is basically to create institutions that are equal opportunity, and mechanisms of communication that are equal opportunity. A lot of that, I mean, the world around us is changing really, really fast. Things like sohaibweb.com is a pretty amazing thing, you know. Things like revolutions happening from Facebook is a pretty amazing thing. So we're living in the communication revolution era. There's no reason we shouldn't take advantage of that in living in a society that takes most advantage of that in the world, right? So that would be my first thing. The second area is really, we're not at the level right now to be able to get reliable help locally. We're not at that level. Right now, our reliable resources are in certain areas, and they have to be nationalized. Until we're at the point that we can distribute really great quality stuff. Like, for example, just give you a small example of that, and I want to hear more from you guys. Khatibs. Like good khutbah. When's the last time you heard one? Good, you didn't sleep in it. It didn't have to do with something you couldn't understand, like the fiqh of selling camels, or like
how sharp your knife.
Yeah, like really, there's a disconnect between the khatib and the people, right? And there are some communities where there's no disconnect. There's a really great, relevant discourse happening from the mimbar, but that's not nationalized yet. So we need to create institutions that do that. Like our initiative in Dallas was Khatib Workshop, to just get Khatibs to come and have a talk about, well, what kind of khutbahs you should be giving, what kind of khutbahs you shouldn't be giving, what should you avoid. Anyhow, that would be my response to that. So I'll keep, my answers are going to be like 70% shorter than that from now. So.
I would add on to that try to take advantage also of online institutions that allow interaction between the scholar and the student. Inshallah ta'ala, that's something that you could do that's a more practical step in that regard. Also, again, unfortunately, our masajid have not created an atmosphere where sisters really can come learn, and have access to a scholar. But I think that if you insist enough, and with more senior scholars, and what I've seen at least, that more senior scholars are more willing, and naturally they're more willing to speak to sisters and to give them their time in that regard. So taking advantage of more senior scholars. But again, trying, where there's a will, there's a way. So inshallah ta'ala, you'll find your way bit the night time.